Welcome to the Geoff and Gena Show.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Gena. Here to show Ep.4, History of Posterity and Selective Justice, in our series on the murder of Sir Harry Oakes from 1943. The author, John Marquis, stated he began his investigation of Sir Harry Oakes' murder back in the early months of 1969. When a grade A anonymous witness met Marquis in a dark corner of a Nassau bar, which has now become an abandoned house. Marquis didn't want to reveal the gender of the person, so we can assume it was a woman who had a passport and other travel documents belonging to a dead woman named Betty Renner, who arrived in the Bahamas some years before to investigate Sir Harry's murder. She said she discovered the documents of the woman reporter who was murdered that morning. Marquis asked her, "Are you sure?" She answered, "Absolutely sure." Marquis asked her, "Where are the documents now?" She answered, "They were handed to a senior police officer, and they are now in the hands of the police." Marquis asked her, "How do you know?" She said, "Because I'm in the best possible position to know." Now, when Geoff and I did some research a little bit about who this person was and the importance of John Marquis interviewing this woman who he doesn't want to reveal her identity, we searched and we found
Her name is Alice McDonald, and she came down with Betty Renner. When Betty Renner, who worked for the U.S. Department of Justice and was a lawyer and apparently was investigating the murder of Sir Harry Oakes when she was murdered, supposedly on a bicycle ride, and they said it was rape, and she was thrown into a shallow well known as a banana hole, where they replant bananas. So Alice McDonald had all of Betty's information and handed them over to a senior Bahamian police officer.
Alice McDonald and Betty Renner were staying at we guess it's a bed and breakfast, because in downtown Nassau, that's what they would have in that area around Government House. As an alternative to staying in a small hotel, you could stay in someone's house. And the name of this place that they stayed at was called the Lost House Nassau Resort, which kind of looks like a balcony house, one of those old wooden 1700 period structures.
Two floors.
The dining room and the living room is on the bottom floor. The bedrooms are upstairs. So they kind of stayed in a quaint kind of hotel. So word would have gotten around who was staying there in the hotel fairly quickly. And that's probably what led to Miss Renner's unsolved murder. And apparently it happened April 19th, 1950, when she was found dead. And the murder of Sir Harry Oakes happened July 8th, 1943. So this was about 7 years after the murder, but a lot of people were still interested in solving the murder. So she may have been asking questions around, and then word got around that she was snooping around, so they did what they had to do. Further here, it says the Lost House refers to a rumored haunted mansion, probably the old Stewart estate on Harbor Island near Nassau. That's over by Eleuthera and Spanish Wells, Harbor Island. It's a small island where the family that owned the mansion vanished in the 1940s. Or it could have been potentially a hotel resort called the Lost House, mentioned in 1950 news about a murder investigation. So that's the bed and breakfast that we were talking about. Apparently, there's a lot of mansions that are around in the Bahamas that are called haunted mansions, and they have a little history about it where a family was, brutally murdered, or it turned into some kind of ghost house, with paranormal activity
Because the people were chased out,
by the ghosts in the house.
or chased out by the people in the city. Whatever the case may be, they were chased away, and then of course it becomes a ghost house.
Marquis confirmed that she could have no possible motive for calling the meeting to relay this information, and that would be Alice MacDonald that he's talking about, other than to expose the truth. She knew the information was unpublishable during that time, but felt Marquis should know the facts for future reference, and that reasonable people would understand that such sensitive pieces of Bahamian history should be made known to the press so that they would not be lost to posterity. Marquis said, the documents don't incriminate Harold Christie, but it does suggest that he was an accessory in the killing of Betty Renner and some other unexplained Nassau murders as well. After 1973, when the Bahamas became independent, the murders stopped. And that was also the year that Walter Foskett and Harold Christie both died. So it appears that, according to the author, there was an effort to systematically silence those who knew too much or were determined to find out more in the years to come. Marquis stated the meeting with the woman, who is now dead, confirmed what he firmly believes, that the murder of Sir Harry Oakes was strictly a local affair, plotted and executed in New Providence by people with compelling reasons to dispose of him. From what John Marquis gathered, the information that he gathered, he realized that there were no international people that were involved in that this was strictly something that local authority handled amongst themselves and then also covered up.
And the Met Police, the British Metropolitan Police, are the ones that have Walter Foskett as the engineer of gathering the locals to help commit and cover up this murder of Sir Harry Oakes.
Because Sir Harry Oakes was going to confront Foskett, yeah, and straighten him out.
In regards to selling of paintings.
And his hotel, his coastal hotel in Miami.
Basically defrauding Sir Harry. And Sir Harry found out that his lawyer, Walter Foskett, was doing this.
Marquis asked the question, why is the Oakes murder still important today? And why is a new generation of Bahamians so eager to find out more? And this is his purpose for writing the book. This is why Marquis provided a few new angles to an old story, to shed light on misconceptions and pay close attention to the details. The murder mystery has unique qualities. 1, a rich cast of characters in our midst. 2, fascination deepened by the involvement of a governor who was once a king and emperor during wartime Bahamas era of World War II. 3, the Oakes case is the 20th century's greatest murder mystery. Criminologists continue to debate forensic evidence and the use of common law in court to test the evidence. That's number 4. 5, the alignment of the local law enforcement cover-up which followed the murder. 6, the callous scheme to frame Alfred de Marini with a murder he didn't commit made people feel uneasy, Bahamian or not, for more than half a century. 7, uncovering the painful reality that certain people are immune from justice. 8. Accepting that innocent men can be sent to their deaths to protect the guilty. 9. Realizing the Oak story is culturally relevant to the way Bahamians live their lives today. 10. Recognizing that selective justice for those currently at large because they are protected by powerful connections and never face the judicial process. Marquis described the 10 points we highlighted as a heavy burden for a young nation to carry. He said it compromises all who know the reality, undermines the rule of law and the fabric of civilized society, and frustrates Bahamian policemen that the system of justice can be so wantonly abused. The Oaks case set a disturbing precedent in the Bahamas as an acceptable remedy for controlling direct investment in the country, besmirching local law enforcement and the judicial process, whom couldn't reach a conclusion that satisfied questions remaining. Bahamians were subconsciously left with a legacy of fear, mistrust, injustice, and bitter resignation, knowing that Sir Harry's life was squandered so recklessly with no punishment, no penalty, and no apology. Marquis said Sir Harry was a complex man with a number of personal demons due to too much pain and disappointment in his life. He was never at ease with himself. People described him as an ill-tempered and obnoxious man, but radiated magnanimity and compassion that changed a room like sunshine. Marquis solidified his convictions after speaking to a black Bahamian friend who knew the Oaks family for many years, who told him, quote, "As a family, they have always been different from other rich whites. For a start, they always liked black people. They were never prejudiced. They have always been nice people, a power for good in the Bahamas. Generous, caring, empathetic, the Oaks family laid a template for the modern Bahamas. The country owes them more than many are prepared to acknowledge." Marquis convicted that Sir Harry was a good, kind, and decent family man who deserved justice far better than he received at the hands of his killers and those whose job it was to find the culprit. So did his family, whose hurt has persisted over so many years, who today are still left to wonder why he died the way he did, in a mad confusion of blood and fire. And that's why he named his book Blood and Fire, as the theme, I guess, also of investigating this murder and this cover-up. Now, in the afterword, this is the afterword of the book. Marquis secured 2 interviews offering 2 entirely different perspectives of the Oaks case. The first was with Levi Gibson, Sir Harold Christie's chauffeur during the war years. However, he became a successful real estate agent who made it to his 90s with full lucidity. He still held fond memories for Sir Harold, who he clearly revered. The second was retired British journalist Roy East, who once worked for the International Press Corporation in London, who was in his 80s and living in Cornwall, England. Mr. East's connections are scanty but significant. He arrives in Nassau for the first time as a serviceman during the 1940s, when the Oaks case was still very much a hot topic. Then he returned back to Nassau as a 20-year veteran Fleet Street reporter, assigned to cover the historic change in government from the UBP to the PLP, which was elected by the black majority during the general election of 1967 in the Bahamas. Levi Gibson maintained a dogged silence for 60 years about a murder that blighted his former boss's reputation. In Nassau's over-the-hill communities, populated by mostly by black Bahamians, Mr. Gibson's faithful silence was seen as an unflattering quality of his personality. Whenever Mr. Gibson was quizzed by persistent foreign journalists probing him for insight into the Oaks case, looking for a break, he set boundaries for himself that didn't expand beyond routine denials on Sir Harold Christie's behalf. He assured them his boss was too kind, too gentle, and too non-confrontational to ever be a plotter, conspirator, or murderer. Marquis got his opportunity to interview Gibson on the 8th of February 2005, which Marquis described as, quote, a development of a kind to set a journalist's heart a-racing, because Levi Gibson was now talking to casual acquaintances who showed an interest in the case. A 15-minute telephone conversation revealed a surprisingly forthcoming but fairly predictable disclosure that was still interesting coming from a witness so close to the case. It was Bahamian history in the making, as he was one of the last significant surviving figures connected to the case. Mr. Gibson was not evasive and non-committal as expected. Rather, Gibson stated that categorically Count Alfred de Marini was the killer of Sir Harry Oaks and was helped by a friend and a Bahamian associate. Mr. Gibson named the friend and associate, but Marquis couldn't confirm whether or not the men were still alive, so withheld their names for legal reasons. De Marini had been dead for several years already. Marquis was keen to point out that Mr. Gibson said many times before that Sir Harold Christie was not the killer, but he has never, to his own knowledge or mind, revealed his own suspicions in print about who the killer was. It would be hazardous for him to put it in writing that Alfred de Marini was the killer and not Harold Christie while Alfred de Marini was still alive. But now that he's been dead a long time, Gibson feels comfortable gossiping about the case on the streets and defending his boss that got away with murder and crooked land deals attached to the motive. Mr. Gibson wanted and valued the street cred more than the truth and lost his credibility in the process. Marquis stated that he just happened to be the first journalist to speak to Mr. Gibson about the case since Count Marini had passed away. Marquis stated Mr. Gibson spoke to him from the comfort of his Nassau home as he was approaching his 91st birthday, but still an active realtor who calls into his office in Nassau for business meetings and checks his mail. Of the Oaks case, Gibson said, quote, there has never been any doubt in my mind that De Marini and his friend were the killers. I believe they were shown the way to where Sir Harry was sleeping by a Bahamian who knew De Marini well. I don't want to discuss motives or anything else, but I feel very strongly that this is what happened. End quote. Marquis knew Levi Gibson was lying for his boss, Christie, and he was full of shit because he offered no evidence for his claims, but insisted no one else existed with a reason to kill Oaks, other than the patsy they chose, Alfred de Marini, for whom they were equally blinded by their hate and joined against him together. Mr. Gibson told Marquis, quote, Sir Harry's butler, Munro, M-U-N-R-O, was at the other Oaks home in Maine at the time with Lady Oaks, but the man who helped De Marini knew his way about Westbourne. Without knowing it, Mr. Gibson confessed to John Marquis that he was set up and used as a false alibi for a premeditated murder to happen for his boss, Sir Harold Christie, to dispose of his friend, Sir Harry Oakes, whom he was a guest of and staying in his home. Gibson was the first witness and didn't realize he was sent to the airport to pick up Walter Foskett, the family lawyer. Gibson said, quote, "All I know is that I took Sir Harold's car to Westbourne that night, and it was still there in the morning. Although it had been raining, it was still dry underneath. So I feel Sir Harold had been at the house all night. However, he slept very hard. I know that when he called me that morning to tell me about Sir Harry's murder, he was very upset. I then went to the airport to pick up the family's lawyer, Walter Foskett." End quote. Mr. Gibson told Marquis he was quizzed by Major Pemberton, the lead investigator, after the killing and accused him of knowing who was behind it. As Major Pemberton accused Levi Gibson of knowing who was behind the killing. So there was already suspicion in the air. Gibson said, quote, "He invited me to the police station. They were trying to put it on Sir Harold, but I told them to go to hell. The whole thing was a mess up. The police department screwed it up." Marquis said Mr. Gibson also blamed the Duke for screwing up the investigation by calling in his bodyguards from Miami, the two Miami detectives who didn't know what they were doing. Gibson said, quote, "You must remember that Sir Harold had no reason to do it. He was shocked to hell that morning. There is no doubt in my mind that De Marini and his friend did it. No doubt at all." End quote. Even after 60 years of ambiguity regarding getting justice for Sir Harry Oakes, Mr. Gibson said the Oakes and Christie families remained firm friends, claiming he remained on good terms with all the Oakes children. He also knew Nancy Oakes right up to her death in January 2005. She's buried in St. Mary's graveyard. She's buried in the front of the church, and Daddy and Mama Gibbs and all of them are buried in the back of the church. So she was a member of St. Mary's, Nancy Oakes. Mr. Gibson concluded the phone call with Marquis saying, quote, "Whenever I was in London, we would go to dinner together. I also knew Sidney and Shirley very well." Sidney and Shirley Oakes. "I used to take them out when they were kids after the murder. The two families continued to be friends." End quote. He said Sir Harold didn't dwell too much on the murder because, quote, "he knew he was innocent," end quote, in spite of the suspicion flying around. Quote, he said, "The fact is that Sir Harold was not the kind of man to hurt anyone. He wouldn't kill a fly," said Levi Gibson, end quote. Before we end this episode, we wanted to bring up Dorothy Maxey. That's Sir Harold's secretary, right? And apparently his secretary, Dorothy Maxey, got upset, right?
She lost her job with Sir Harold at some point after the murder. Anyway, with her new employer, let's say 1961, she told her new employer she knew everything about the Sir Harry Oakes murder and she was going to write a book. Within months, 6 or 7 months, so 1962, she was found murdered in the same way that Betty Renner was murdered. Same
Bludgeoned.
type of way, bludgeoned and supposedly
Raped and murdered, like half naked.
Half naked, and the half naked part in both cases. So that was Dorothy Maxey, who passed away in 1962. In between, after Sir Harry was murdered, Lady Oakes, his widow, was receiving blackmail calls for money. And it looks like Dorothy Maxey was behind that, as
Maybe.
well as threatening calls to Alice McDonald, Betty Renner's, who came to the Bahamas with Betty Renner, who was murdered. When she went back to New York, she was receiving phone calls. They thought, the FBI, she thought it was coming from the hotel, the Lost House. FBI checked it out. It wasn't coming from there. So now Dorothy Maxey, it looks like everything she was doing, a lot of Sir Harold's footwork.
Bidding. Yeah, and in 1959, Fred Maloof also told the FBI that he received a call, a warning from a woman that he was going to be shot. And it ended up in the paper that
someone got
someone
shot.
that looked like him got shot and was left in a phone booth. So there was a lot of stuff going on there.
Foskett was rumored to have a gun at this time, and the rumor came from him. He went around talking about it.
Exactly, and you know what? That was something that I wanted to bring up here, talking about Fred Maloof, right? It says when Fred Maloof talked to the FBI back in 1959, he told agents Foskett called him to his law office to buy the Rembrandt from him. Like, that's the man with the sword painting. He wanted to buy the Rembrandt from him with $20,000 cash instead of the gentleman's agreement that I guess he made with Sir Harry. He made a gentleman's agreement with Sir Harry. Foskett went and canceled it and called Maloof to come and receive $20,000 cash from him for the Rembrandt. So Foskett insisted Maloof include the Gilbert Stuart portrait of George Washington with the $20,000 payment. So, according to the FBI papers, the two men got into an argument and Foskett pulled a gun on Maloof, and Maloof claimed that he disarmed Foskett. So Foskett was running around with a gun, according to FBI.
And known for quick draw.
Yeah, he's a bad guy. He liked to play bad guy. The last character is Mabel Ellis, who was the domestic at Sir Harry's estate that night. And she served dinner to Sir Harry and his guests. So Mabel Ellis, a domestic at Sir Harry's estate, said she served dinner to Sir Harry and 3 guests and left them laughing and talking over a game of Chinese checkers. When she went home, she prepared his bed for the night and left a spray gun containing a half a pint of insecticide and placed it inside the door. Apparently they had a lot of mosquitoes, and it rained that night and his windows were open, so he would use the insecticide to kill the mosquitoes. But anyway, the insecticide was the same inflammable liquid which the slayer used to burn the bed and body to hide the crime. She said Christie was a business associate of the slain Sir Harry Oakes. And Sir Oscar, the Chief Justice, asked Miss Ellis to confirm that there was a bedchamber and a bathroom between the rooms occupied by Sir Harry Oakes and Sir Harold Christie, which she did. There was another bedroom. So there was some space.
They shared a bathroom.
Gotcha. So that was, and so all of this about Mabel Ellis came out of a publication called the Marshfield Herald, and it was on Tuesday, 19th of October, 1943. The article was written by E.V.W. Jones, just in case you wanted to do some more research and check out what we're talking about, what we're discussing.
So until episode 5, this is Geoff.
And this is Gena.
Until furthermore about
the murder
of Sir Harry Oakes.
Sir Harry Oakes.